October 1st, 2018 meeting. Do we need any discussion? If not, I'd ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Do I have a Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to correspondence, DOH enforcement list. Citywide Mobile Response Corporation was assessed a civil penalty of $7,000 for violations 800.22H and .23A. Juan Rosado was suspended for 3 months effective 10/30/2018. Suspension stayed, placed on probation 3 years effective 10/30/18. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations 800.3 AP1. And other correspondence that we have?
So I did have where'd Karen go? Dr. Gonzalez, are we gonna, I have the application, but I didn't have his resume. Is he interested?
I have not got a response back.
Would you like me to table that then until the next meeting?
Please.
Okay. Old business, state EMS meetings.
So Debbie is not here to give the report, and I had the minutes right here. Mark, do you want to give them since you were there? Okay. Is that a no?
We're giving you like 5 minutes.
All right.
What to hit.
I'll give them. All right, so we attended the state EMS meeting, and what was the date there that we went? I didn't know what day it was. Anyhow, so some of the discussions surrounded the Curaplex epinephrine kit and the recall on those. As you'll remember, we sent, in December, we had sent a memo out. Basically, the FDA recalled the EpiSafe syringes because they consider the A&P markings to be an off-label use. There is no change in the dosing of epinephrine under New York State protocol. There is no change in the New York State syringe epinephrine policy statement for BLS providers. That policy statement was written so they could draw epinephrine in a graduated syringe. The problem being is that through the Check and Inject demo program, they were trained on EpiSafe syringes. So basically, Boundtree sent out a bunch of syringes telling them to throw them all out, which I didn't realize was going to happen. So this came after, and some agencies threw all their EpiSafe syringes out. But basically, the state kind of, and what our decision was, is either train all the providers, it's up to the medical director, train all the providers on using a standard graduated 1cc syringe. Again, all training has to be documented and on file. If the syringes in the kit are not expired, but the epinephrine is expired, they can replace the epinephrine only and make sure the new expiration date is noted on the kit. Most of the EpiSafe syringes had expiration dates of 2020 or so. Or they could purchase EpiPens in place of the kits. There are cheaper versions available now. So the agencies were given that option. There was discussion on mutual aid concerns across the state. They're looking at updating the policy statement, and that they made it very clear that the REMSCOs had authority over approval of mutual aid plans for the counties. Ambulance transport transfusion services, ATS services. So while they're still looking at the regulations, they did find a little blurb in there that stated that, see if I can quote, if they're transporting a patient out of the hospital for an emergency, they can send the patient with a nurse in a non-ATS service, but it will be the blood bank's responsibility to report that to the Wadsworth lab. And that should only be used in such cases there are no ATS services available. So this does not override the need for all services to become ATS services that are going to be transporting patients with blood, with Mark's help, we went through and templated and put a lot of work into sending all the forms to Wadsworth, and we were told they're redoing the process, don't use them. So we're at a standstill. The only guidance I can give to agencies is get a hold of Wadsworth to get forms, and we can give you the templates if you want them, but I can't guarantee they'll be approved or not. So that's been since September when this came out, and we're yet to have a process from Wadsworth in place, or the forms in place. So services wanting to get the process started may contact Wadsworth for the forms. We're happy to give them anything that we have. Whether they'll accept them or not, I don't know. DOH is looking at moving towards some more electronic processes. So Hospital Hub, they had discussion on that. I talked about it at the last meeting, and it is as well in my program agency report. There is a copy of a letter back on the table that you may want to pick up regarding Hospital Hub, and I'll talk a little bit more about it on my report. A letter when I could read most of this. There's a call for presenters out for vital signs. They continue to work on statewide quality metrics. So for recruitment and retention, EMS Week in May, they're going to do a statewide initiative. They would like agencies to take 4 hours from noon to 4 to go out and educate their communities. They're going to have some more resources out. The new BLS protocols were passed, and the collaborative protocols, I'll talk about those later on the agenda. Jimmy's Law that we discussed last time, this stems from a call in 2011 in which a child on a ventilator was transferred to air medical, a fixed wing from a ground ambulance. The ambulance left and the air medical service had a ventilator failure which caused detrimental effects to the patient. The CMAC physicians went back to the assemblyman, and their concerns were, should there be required malpractice insurance for all ambulances? Should there be some interactions for fixed wing services to somehow be registered with the state? And discussions on transfers. We need to, and they feel that the new BLS protocols address the last concern. So I won't get into education and training now. I'll save that for the Remac Remsco. Just trying to figure out the ones that are more medical in nature. They're looking at Part 800 updates as far as the equipment that should be on ambulances. I think those are the big things. Anything else, Mark or Chris, that you can think of that would be appropriate for the Remac? Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Ann? Okay, we'll move on to BLS CME requirements.
I will cover that in my report.
Okay. Moving on to program agency report then.
There's been a lot going on. Okay. All right, so basically new office, new website. So we're in the same building. We moved to the other end of the hall. Our suite number is now 230. There's full address, and our website is combined now with FDRHPO website. So if you go to fdrhpo.org and you look under initiatives, you'll see emergency medical services, or you can just use that link there. So our STAC and our TAC, we attended the December 14th meeting. The next meeting will be March 15th at 10 a.m., followed by the RTAC at noon. The FAST-ED stroke severity scale that we talked about at the last meeting was selected. Again, this is not to replace the Cincinnati stroke scale, but to be utilized in addition to help identify large vessel occlusions. That should have been occlusions, not stroke. And our tech-savvy providers can also utilize an app to help them with questions that are included. So the EMS committee of the RSTAC is working on education. There was discussion on the last stroke quality call that they're working on creating a video, and there would be a way to validate that all the providers have watched that video with the system, and then kind of jump a spot there, but we're looking at doing a joint stroke study with Central New York and Mid-State regions following this. Details being worked on. The state transition to third-party designation of stroke centers is ongoing. I think I reported that last time. The other thing at the RTAC, they talked about 100% of their burn patients that they are receiving are coming in hypothermic. So they did introduce some burn transfer guidelines, and I copied them. So if the folks want to take them back to their hospitals, there should be copies on the back table. Any questions on our TAC or our stack? Medical director changes. So Town of Watertown Ambulance has added an assistant medical director, Dr. Cartier. And Lisbon Volunteer Fire Corporation has changed from Dr. Lawrence to Dr. Holland, and I would entertain a motion for, they've both been given provisional approval. I would entertain a motion for full approval.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
All right, so BLSFR paperwork have been provided to the following agencies. We received all of Brownville Joint Fire Districts. We submitted that, and they were approved as a BLSFR. Cape Vincent Fire Department is working on theirs. It's almost done. I've met with them a couple times, and I would entertain a motion to endorse them for a BLSFR pending receipt of their completed paperwork.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So the other one, so the AEMT upgrade that we previously approved for JS Coster has passed the 90-day mark set forth in their approval letter. What's the Remac's pleasure on that?
Has there been any issues?
They don't think they've moved forward with it. They haven't called to have me come inspect. I don't know where they are with their EPCRs, so do we extend them another 90 days or have them resubmit the paperwork? A lot can change in 3 months.
Would that be your recommendation, Ann? 90 days?
We've
Longer?
already had 90 days.
No, I realize that. An additional 90 days you mentioned. Or let them start over.
But they've had a change of a change of the person. I would probably recommend the extension to give the new person ability to get their feet under them.
I'd make it a motion.
So motion.
Any further discussion?
Sorry.
All right, I guess we need a second then.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
So just notifications for public access defibrillation is required. The town of Lisbon has a has a defibrillator now in the town hall. Adams Center Fire District, Thousand Island Bridge Authority, and the town of Brownville is the BLSFR. All submitted original CAD applications, and Lisbon Fire District changed their MD on their public access defibrillation that they keep in the station. Here we go. We have lots of regional BLS adjuncts. So, Narcan, Lisbon Fire Corporation updated with their MD change. Town of Brownville, I would entertain a motion to approve them for Narcan. Do you want to do them all together?
Do them together.
Okay.
Unless there's any concerns.
I don't have any concerns there.
Okay.
Let's do them together. Albuterol, again, Lisbon Fire Corporation, Town of Brownville, BLSFR. BLS CPAP, which will be new to Madrid Rescue and Lisbon Fire Corporation, so that would need approval. BLS blood glucometry, Madrid Fire, that's an error, it's Madrid Rescue Squad. Anyhow, it's not Madrid Fire Department, it's Madrid Rescue Squad. My apologies, I mistyped there. North Pole Fire Company and Lisbon Fire Corporations was just an update in their MD change. They updated with the Wadsworth Lab on their renewal of their certificate. Syringe epinephrine notices came from Lisbon Fire Corporation, North Pole Fire Company, Town of Brownville, with Lisbon being an update. And we're still waiting on the receipt of a limited lab license from Cape Vincent Ambulance, but we're working with them on a few other things. So I would entertain a motion for the approval of the BLS adjuncts listed.
So
Do we need
moved.
any discussion? No? Okay. Do I have a second, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So this just gives you an idea. As you know, last year we stated that within 3 years, all agencies need to be electronic. So we have so many now, which is a great thing. I had to split the slide up. So the majority of our agencies utilize EMS charts, and then the rest of our agencies are spread around using ESO, ZOL, Forte IPCR, Image Trend, and RAM-AIM. The ones that have the little asterisks by them, they came on through the Coverdale Stroke Program. So that was a very beneficial program to bring some more, or keep some folks electronic. So we do have a few agencies in process, but I think the most exciting news is that only 6 agencies that are transport. There's a couple ALSFRs out there too, but only 6 agencies we haven't heard from regarding moving toward electronic PCR. So that's pretty good. We're getting closer to a fully electronic system. So we have sent a couple other agencies additional information so they can make a choice between a couple different systems that we can offer at a discounted price as well. So hopefully we'll get those moved forward. So the following agencies, we have not received their December, November for Redwood, or the December PCRs for the remainder of those folks. We continue to haunt them on a monthly basis. The Department of Health has asked that we get all the 2018 PCRs in, so I will be picking up the phone here in the very near future to haunt them. So the Coverdale Stroke Program, again, we continue to work on development of the Image Trendy PCR platform. Although we missed today, we do weekly conference calls with the developer and our neighboring regions, Central New York and Mid-State. What's exciting is we have now transitioned EMS charts agencies to NEMSIS B3 on our regional bridge. I'm not sure if those agencies are so excited about that as we transition. So we now have to monitor and ensure all those charts are going in. There are a couple sessions that are going to be scheduled that anybody's welcome to view, and I'll be sending them out to agencies. So whether it's somebody who may be interested in using the image trend documentation system, or somebody who's currently using it and wants refresher training, the dates are there, and again, I'll be sending those out to agencies. They haven't gone out. And Hospital Hub, as I stated, I'd talk about that a little bit. I did have an opportunity to talk with Samaritan Medical Center about it. Governor Hospital was in attendance at a DOH presentation of this in Syracuse. This will be very beneficial because what this Hospital Hub is going to do is that all those vendors that I showed you, it will, once everybody's transitioned to NEMSIS V3, it will take, and the hospitals will have access to all their charts through one system for patients that are transferred to their facilities. So with fax becoming old technology, this will probably be the future of how agencies transmit PCRs. So the Department of Health sent a letter to hospitals, an emergency department. So for our docs here, if you're not familiar with this in your emergency department or your hospital, there is a copy of that letter back there. We hope to get everybody signed on to this, but right now we're still getting the data there, so we're not quite ready. But we took a huge step forward. Peter Brody at the state level and one of the interns has been working diligently on making this data transition. So I really am looking forward to this, because as a Remac, once this transition happens and we get those patients electronic, we can probably start doing some more proactive quality insurance instead of reactive. And that's a huge goal. So there's the CME sessions, past sessions, upcoming sessions. One thing I'm going to say, we had a couple incidences with this last CME session, so a reminder that providers need to attend an approved skills session to complete their CME. So if they're suspended, they have to still go to an approved session to get their CMEs. We don't credential evaluators any longer. And for those agencies that are approved, part of that approval is, when you signed on to be approved, is that you had all of the equipment and that you were utilizing that for providers to do their scenarios on, not just pretending an adult was an infant. So make sure that all the equipment is there. We had a couple of instances, so in order to keep the agency's ability to do CMEs, that's going to be crucial. There's the suspension report. We sent out 7 letters. 3 of those suspensions are going to have been twice within the 3 years, so they will have a fee. We had 5 that were previously suspended, that stayed suspended. 1 has decided to practice only at the BLS level. We had a couple that were previously suspended with no agency affiliation. We finally enacted what we decided to do is we're making them inactive if they're out on medical or deployed, so they're not showing up in the system. And basically what that does in the system is when they come back, they just have to contact us so we know, and then when they get their skills verified in a skills session, we can get them back online. We have 3 AEMTs who are not affiliated with an AEMT agency. We have 1 that called us and notified us they're no longer practicing in the region. And there's 5 we identified that were no longer in the region. And then no affiliation letters were sent to 4 providers because they do not have an ALS service that they are practicing with. So the agency told us that they were no longer, and only out of the 4, only 1 of them I know of is working on becoming affiliated with another agency. I completed a Narcan albuterol blood glucometry training in Waddington, and we did a BLS Narcan at FDR HPO. Paul, Mark, Justin, and I were going to do a difficult airway course in January, and it got canceled due to lack of registrations. I think we had, what, 4? So the exciting part is we had a leadership conference that we've been working with the North Area Health Education, the Catskill-Hudson Health Education folks, and it's coming up February 9th in Canton, and we have 61 registered for it, which is exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. Mark helped a lot with the planning on that as well. So, and of course, Spring Fling will be coming up April 25th to the 30th. So the BLS CMEs, so I haven't rolled out the new provider credentialing manual because there was a little bit, I just had to wait to get all the ALS suspensions done and all taken care of. As of February 1st, that's what we have in our system. That's a number of providers. We had not received some of the CME manager forms that we sent out, so Jonathan went after getting those. That was the other reason we hadn't rolled it out, because we didn't have all the CME managers to set up the training. So that will be going out by the end of this month, and I will be setting up CME manager training for the BLS agencies, and I will obviously open that up, so if we have any new CME managers and ALS agencies, or if they just want a refresher, they'll be able to jump on and ask questions or get a refresher. So the STEMI program's gone, but not forgotten. All right, so the grant has finally come to an end, despite the multiple barriers that were presented over the years that this went on. We had a small amount of data, and it did show a 30% decrease in time for a STEMI patient to arrive at a receiving facility capable of definitive care. So in that, it was successful, but we had a few agencies that just didn't engage, and we gave them brand new equipment, and they never completed the paperwork or installed the technology. So again, we have a lot of ALS agencies that are unable, well, actually majority, except for ones that have newer monitors. I know Lewis County Search and Rescue is now, and I think Governor Rescue can, don't have the capability still of transmitting. One of the biggest hang-ups on the grant was it was onerous to try and utilize a Healthy Connection email. And so if we can, there's a lot of new technology out there that's going to make this easier in the future. But the grant's done. They're very happy. We're trying to look at the data and see what we can pull for a 12-week study regionally. So we continue to look at this and strive for this. The EM Resource Program, that's getting closer to being ready to go. We did some administrator training the other day that was way too long. Next time we'll break it into a couple of sessions. And we are receiving additional training Thursday of this week regarding the system. And then I would hoping to get it out to the hospital. I'd really love a March 1st go live date. And I will tell you what, the other night when Jefferson County went into a state of emergency, I would have given anything to have that communication system. So I believe as we progress forward and we look into the future with our emergency management needs, our disaster planning folks would be very interested in this system as well. So Chris had an opportunity to sit in on us with the training, and I believe even public health may have some interest as well in the system. So I'm looking forward to that. The other state program, the pre-hospital emergency care coordinator, will be sending this information out to try and get somebody at each agency that has a focus on pediatric care. They will just be the one that will advocate for pediatric care, and I know you can't read all that. So this is back there on the table copied for you. And I would ask any of you of the agencies that if you can identify somebody within your agency that would like to be the pediatric emergency care coordinator for that agency, there's an application back there to fill out and send to my office. And again, this is a state initiative. So please spread the word to all the agencies. And we hope to, again, I'll be sending this out again as well. I did send out to a few that indicated they were interested, and I only heard back from 2 of them. So, And at the last Remac meeting, we talked about the TXA study, but I've advised Westchester we'd be interested, but I have not heard anything, and there's some dates for you. And that is the end of my report.
Does anyone have any questions for Ann? Okay.
Thank you, Ann.
New business, credentialing seasoned providers.
So I did have a request, and I'm not sure that and I'm just throwing it out there. So we have an agency that has providers that live out of the area, that are moving out of the area, but they're coming back during the summertime. And wanted to know if there was anything we could put in so we didn't have to keep taking them online and offline with their CMEs, because they aren't here during the first semester.
Are they credentialed in another region?
I don't know if they're going to stay credentialed in the other region. Because I believe they moved on to a different profession, but they're still remaining a volunteer or part-time worker here.
So are we talking about like a single provider or?
Well, there's two that I know about, but this is not the first time this has been brought to my attention, and I just stuck with the policy as it was, because, you know, we do have, in our provider credentialing manual, we do have for military providers when they're deployed and for folks that are out on medical leave, but it's too difficult. It's very difficult to track, you know.
Everybody's screaming for providers. I would hate to see us not have somebody that can provide care because we are held up in the lingo of, do they do CME somewhere or not? So I think we need to have some kind of system to
But then,
work with them.
do we waive CME requirements for that semester because they're not practicing?
And again, you know, remember if we have, with the new thing, if we suspend them, like if I had to, let's say I had to suspend them every January because they weren't here December 31st to do their CMEs. Now, you know, the other potential, I don't know if, you know, you can obtain all your didactic hours in the first semester. Could they do all of their skills in the first semester for the full year?
It seems to me like it's the only fair way.
We really should be doing skills verification though before we let them come back to work.
What's your policy with the military when they come back?
When they come back, we do the agency does a skills verification, and they come back on, but they just put in there they're deployed, and I don't send a suspension letter. But I honestly see that getting out of control if we're going to end up with a lot of seasonal providers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the work in registering them as a provider? Because on my end, it really isn't a ton of work when somebody...
I mean, the point is I have to send them it costs me almost $50 to mail suspension letters, not a big deal. But because we send them certified. I do tend to send them by email to the agency first so that if I can get out of sending one, I don't have to send the final letter. But, you know, that's how we were notified then that there was 3 providers that were no affiliation.
There's no provision to do like a voluntary anymore, like a voluntary surrender for a period of time. I remember when I was in the office, there was
You can do a voluntary.
There was 2 or 3 folks that were snowbirds, so like every January you'd get a letter saying, look, I'm going to be out of the area for the next 4 months. And that was kind of in that window of time. Is there something that we could do that way so that we don't have to like officially suspend them?
Yeah,
As long
and they
as
can take a
we
voluntary
make the work on
downgrade.
their end, look, you have to notify us that from these dates, I'm not going to be residing in the region and won't be practicing, but I anticipate this is my return date.
we could do that. But again, the onus has to be on them. I am not tracking them or chasing them, and I'm going to end up having to suspend them if they don't do that. So I can certainly say they take a voluntary downgrade. Or voluntary suspension is, I believe, what we have in the manual. All right. I just wanted to have that discussion with the group, so. We did?
So collaborative protocols.
So with the collaborative protocols, one of the problems that I was running into as the program agency is there were all these changes. It just seemed like boom, boom, boom that were coming about and right off to the state. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. We have a whole process for this. We have to educate our providers on this. We have to put the changes out. We have to update multiple things. So I put that concern forth to the collaborative protocol group. We had multiple discussions on it. We had a small committee that was broken off on that. And at the last program agency directors meeting, because there are now 15 counties that are in this, and I think we may have a couple more joining, so almost everything above New York City is on the collaborative protocols now for ALS. And so as a group of the program agency directors and the collaborative protocol, we are making a process of when changes can be made, right? Because we still have a 30-day comment period, and they were moving so fast it wasn't giving us opportunity to put them out for comment. And we're like, our providers, all of our Remac should have the opportunity to comment on changes. So while that's still in the works, it will look like there will be a time period where folks can submit any changes that they would like. We haven't finalized the exact time yet. And then there'll be time to go out for comment, to come back to the collaborative group, and then, time to do whatever. We're hoping to have time for 2 comment periods. So if a lot of comments come back the first time around, we have the opportunity to make changes and send back out at the collaborative level. And again, the group's looking for additional administrative support and all of that to kind of help with this. With that said, the changes that were kind of went through, and it all kind of happened in a flurry, with the AEMT changes coming in, so it actually meant their scope of practice, and a few other changes, such as they took out having to dilute amiodarone if you're giving it in cardiac arrest, because nobody's doing it anyways. And there's been a few other changes. I just don't really have the whole outline. I have to do a cross-reference to all of them. But the educational stuff is about done for the newest collaborative protocols. The other thing that they did is there's new BLS protocols that the state approved that look a lot like the collaboratives at the BLS level. They cross-referenced, and hopefully, I'm sure there's something in this, but hopefully the BLS information that's in the collaborative will match the state BLS protocols, so we don't have that confusion that we've had for years. Okay, if you remember previously when we were all doing our protocols, we put no BLS in there. But there'll be limited BLS information remaining in the collaborative, but it should agree with the state BLS protocol. So that's going to be a huge change for our BLS providers up and coming. They're working on educational programs. We have to work on the process to validate that everybody's updated on those. And John, I don't know if you've heard anything further on where what their implementation process is going to be.
As I understand, there are very subtle differences. It's more wording than content. That's what I hear. And last I knew, they're working on the training stuff. I don't know, the ETA, I've forgotten what they said at state council, but it's.
August 1st, they were thinking,
Right. So for
possibly.
implementation, right.
So, changes to the New York State CME program, they were thinking that they may be out in the May timeframe as well. So, where they changed the hours that they talked about. It was over a year, it was a year ago, October,
Yeah.
last October. So, we don't have any definitive on what that's gonna look like, but word to the wise, don't allow your providers to think that change is gonna come out and they're going to have less hours when they renew. They should be proceeding as though the hours are as they are. We've seen a few providers get in trouble by that already because the change hasn't come out. And there's no guarantee exactly when it will. So that's where we are with the protocols, so you'll be seeing more regarding those.
All right. Is there other new business to be brought forward?
We talked about our joint meeting.
Yes.
So, if you could mark your calendars, please, for March 20th. We're going to have a joint meeting of the Remac and the Remsco. We need to identify priorities for the region and rank them, and then get committees joint between Remac and Remsco working together on these initiatives. The entire workload can't fall on the program agency office. They have deliverables that they have to do, and they can't do it all. It's a two-person show, Ann and Jonathan. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask that you bring ideas of what you think the region should be working on, and we're going to put them all down, and then we're going to go through and rank them, and then identify committees to work on these initiatives to try to get things taken care of. March 20th, it's a Wednesday, it'll be here, 7 o'clock. I've already gotten approval from Bruce that we confirmed the building was available, so we'll be meeting right here in this room. But we need to look at a bunch of different things. So my hope is that when we have this meeting, not only the Remac, the Remsco, that the people will put some thought into the things that they feel are priorities for the region, and that we can have a all-inclusive list, recognizing that it can change as things come out from the state. The big one that I'm really concerned about is this legalization of marijuana and how we're going to handle that with providers and all that stuff. So rather than each agency working on some of this stuff individually, if we could help provide guidance so that the agencies can adapt what we come up with, I just think it would make life much easier for everybody and make things go a little smoother in the transition. Ann and I would joke we get some stuff that's been on a list and it's moved from year to year to year. So we just think that if we can develop this list and then work jointly between the Remac and the Remsco, that we can tackle some initiatives and get some things done to help us.
Thank you. We need to bring forward, we almost forgot our meeting previous to this, we're discussing some revisions to a policy statement, number 82. And, you're going to bring that.
Yeah, I have it up here. I was trying to fix my little stutter. Okay. So this is our quality improvement policy statement. And basically, the changes are highlighted. One of the things that we have to ensure we're doing is that ultimately it is the service medical directors. So we want to ensure that they're involved. So we added in any patient care issues, concerns should be forwarded to your agency medical director for review and development of remediation/suspension of ALS, BLS privileges as deemed appropriate for review. If a provider is suspended by a service medical director, the North Country EMS program agency is to be notified, and the provider will be regionally suspended until such a time the service medical director and the regional medical director are satisfied with the remediation put forth by the agency and the service medical director. Remediation is the responsibility of the service medical director and the agency. All remediation needs to be accurately documented and kept on file at the agency. The next paragraph was there, what the function of the Regional Continuous Quality Improvement Committee is to review any and all instances where there's an allegation of patient care issue concerns and to develop correction action plan necessary if an issue is referred to us by the service medical director was added. The Regional Continuous Quality Improvement Committee will support the agency with their remediation process if needed and reserves the right to implement additional remediation if needed. This applies to patient care issues, concerns during interfacility and 911 operations. And again, my little stutter is in the next one that I didn't get fixed, but basically it's not a change other than we kind of added in, but not limited to, the listed reasons that are there, which is not a change. And again, if the service medical director has not already done so, and because sometimes the issues don't always come from the agency, sometimes they come from a hospital, so those are the ones that we do have to do. But we're going to take that to the agency and to the agency medical director. So, again, I put the word forward instead of fax, because fax is going by the wayside, so that was just a word change there. And that is the new policy statement. It was reviewed by the physicians that were in the CQI process, so I'd entertain any discussion on this. And really the onus to updating this was to ensure that the service medical directors are involved.
Yeah. Are there any criteria as far as when an issue needs to be or should be referred to the CQI committee by the agency medical director? It just seems kind of vague, like if I don't feel like telling you guys, I don't have to sort of deal.
Well, I think that it's your clinical judgment whether you feel that provider should continue to practice care with remediation.
Does this? I'm sorry. I
That's
just
okay.
got the document earlier. Does the remediation get evaluated or checked by the CQI committee, or is it again just going to be up to the responsibility of the agency medical director?
It ultimately falls back on the agency medical director to ensure that the remediation is completed and done. Again, unless it becomes a regional issue, then it becomes our responsibility as well.
But again, the regional part is still up to the agency medical director, unless there's a suspension. Okay.
Right, and again, it's, John, do you want to speak to that?
I think, like, you can have a series of minor flaws that occur, that you remediate in-house, the agency medical director, and that's it. But after your third or fourth, the trend becomes a bigger deal, that then you may say, okay, this isn't working what we're doing, we need to suspend you, and we may need the resources of the region, because you may not have a CIC in-house, or an ACLS instructor in-house, or whatever, to do that. Or, again, we forget that quality improvement is at the point. It's an education process of trying to work through, so that's kind of where that's at. The only other comment I would make on this is this. If you clearly have a Part 800 issue or a true reportable issue, that should be weighing on your mind as the agency medical director to probably up the ante here and suspend and bring to the region's attention, if that helps in terms of guidance.
Any further discussion? Need a motion then. Jay, thank you. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so our next meeting, our next Remac meeting is April 1st. Debbie mentioned the March 20th meeting. If there's nothing further.
Dr. Delaney, I just had one question, actually.
Absolutely.
Relative to the minimum equipment list, I have a couple of questions. And ultimately, I'm bringing this on behalf of Lewis County Search and Rescue. They've redone their inventory. We've kind of tried to streamline inventory. We have an electronic system now. But I have three simple questions. First question is, right now, the minimum equipment list specifies that we have to carry a 1 to 1,000 ampule. Is there any reason that we use the word ampule versus vial, pre-filled syringe, particularly in today's world of supply and demand when it comes to this? Because in my personal view, I think that we could just specify 1 to 1,000, 1 ml in however it's supplied could be left to the manufacturer, and if you could get it. Does that seem reasonable?
Does anybody have an issue with that?
The only time it'll be an issue, Mark, is if you're letting your BLS providers do the epi check and inject.
Right.
That's very specific. That has to be a vial. It can't be an ampule.
Correct. And actually, our terminology is just the opposite. It says ampule for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why. Probably because, I don't know.
Well,
Probably because Cav is stone tended, I don't know. Okay. The next
just nobody
question.
ever brought it up. I mean, it's not something, when I do inspections, I don't care whether it's a vial or an ampule. As long as it's there, because it changes all the time. I mean, manufacturers change all the time.
The supply chains of getting epi has been horrendous in some places.
The next question on relative to the minimum equipment list is PRN adapters is still listed. I know personally, I can't tell you the last time I used one. Is there any particular reason why we still carry PRN adapters?
I had an agency that they ordered the wrong thing and all of a sudden realized it had a needle on it.
When's the last time you used a PRN adapter, Mark? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
I haven't either. I agree with you, but I'm just telling you of an incident that I have heard about.
But then they could order PRN adapters. I mean, I've never used one in 18 years, so everything's equal as like move on.
I'm good with it.
Perhaps
Discussion?
unless supplier is not a needless system, say optional.
I'll put it under optional. How's that?
In-
And if somebody has trouble ordering, they can.
Right, because you may get a supply chain problem again, and we've had a lot of this come up, by the way, this sort of stuff, that you'd be amazed how you got to go back and do old school stuff to work around
We had to
sometimes.
use them for some epi, 1 to 10,000 to use the PRN adapter.
Yeah, that was the one that came to mind. Nick's shaken, not stirred.
And again, I mean, most places, quite honestly, have enough probably for the next 10 years, but,
Yeah.
and the third thing, again, I have to applaud Tanya, who's our inventory person, because her attention to detail is superior, is our current minimum equipment list says that we must carry 2 large bore extension sets and 2 small bore extension sets. The question posed to me, and I didn't have an answer for it, was, is there any reason that, like in our particular case, it would be easier for us to carry all large. We don't ever use small. The hospital doesn't use small anymore, so we're really purchasing the 2 small ones to meet the list, and a large bore obviously is better and has more capacity. So is there a particular reason that we have to carry the small bore?
That's what we get from Samaritan. This is something.
So then you are on the return onto that, you have to order the 2 large bore.
Correct.
So is there a reason that we couldn't come back to the terminology of extension bore / saline lock set?
I think that the one issue that was, and of course we don't get fluid like we used to for trauma anymore, but the one issue was if you need to do fluid resuscitation and all you had is small bore.
Right.
That was the discussion that led to the
I remember
To the
those.
large bore.
The small bore saline locks are compatible with an 18 gauge needle. Large bore are compatible with the 16s and the 14s. I mean, obviously, everybody's trying to cut costs, so it just really comes down to a cost issue. Of carrying something that you know you're not gonna use, but.
And I think the problem has just been supply and what people are stocking, because, you know, the hospital used to always supply, I know that Claxton Hepburn always used to supply us the small bore. I don't know if they still do. I think Ogdensburg buys the locks now. So they have all large bore instead of restocking at the hospital.
I guess my question would be the physicians that are present, do any of you have a dying energy to require that you have to have the large bore saline locks available still?
Personally, I do not.
So if we just say two periods,
I mean,
it doesn't matter.
how often are you putting in a 14 gauge IV into somebody?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Not very often.
Exactly.
I do fixed wing critical care transports these days. I'm happy if I get to start an IV, let alone what gauge it is, but.
Can I just entertain, if we're pushing high viscosity materials such as amiodarone out dilution, is that really the best thing to be pushing through a small bore extension set, much the same as D50? If that's still being utilized in a crunch, yes, we've moved to 10% dextrose, but when we're trying to give rapid boluses, the restriction point shouldn't be on the extension set, and it's also a pressure issue. What's the weakest point in the system? What are we trying to do?
You see them blow off.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen them blow off with people trying to do too heavy pushes. Down south, most south folks, Syracuse, Binghamton, everybody's carrying the large bores, no small bores anymore. That's pretty much what everybody does. And they don't carry the small bores anymore. Because you can always do the bigger to the smaller, but not vice versa. And no, they're not starting that many 14s and 16s, but that just is what people, so you don't have to think about, shoving it on the end to just go with something big.
I mean, ultimately, that was our end goal here, was to be able just to carry a large bore and not worry about small. But on the other hand, we don't want to make things difficult for those services that work with hospitals that don't carry that either.
I think requiring size, there's got to be at some point in time where we say the agency has to make a decision to have equipment that meets their need.
Why not say generically just extension set?
I think rather than large and small bore.
You choose what you need.
At some point in time, the agencies have to make logical and intelligent decisions.
I don't know if this is a solution, but in Texas, we did not use extension sets. We just used the lure lock straight on the end of the catheter. And there's not really need to have an extension set. If you have a lure lock on your catheter, you can switch out just as easily. So having an extension set may even not be necessary if you have a lure lock adapter.
You want to throw everybody for a loop.
Sorry.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
That's what the medics are getting trained on now. Our kits that I have don't have extension sets on them on the helicopter. We just have lure locks that go straight on the end of the catheter. And then it doesn't matter.
I don't have a preference.
I don't have a preference.
The only time that I ever saw the necessity to have a small bore extension set was in neonates in the NICU. That's the only time I ever needed to have a small bore.
Well, so is it appropriate for our paramedic units to ensure that they have, because the small bore, because of the potential for pediatric?
No. Like 24, 26 weekers.
God, yeah.
Those are the only ones that it really mattered how much fluid was in that extension set.
Yeah.
Because you're down to the hundredth of a cc when you're talking about fluids for those guys. But
and most of our acute kids, they did look-see down in Binghamton, are getting IOs these days. Or, or acute, unconscious, need access now, they're getting IOs.
I don't have a preference, so.
I think we will move the size.
Just remove the size.
And just generically say extension sets.
Is that a reasonable
Two.
compromise to remove the size?
2 or 4
Four
extension
total.
sets.
Probably four.
Yeah,
Four
four
total.
total and just say extension sets.
2.5.
God.
That's it, thank you.
We probably
Hey
should make
guys,
a
we
motion
probably
to
need a
make those
motion for
changes.
those changes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Is there anything further? Yes.
Just briefly, I tried to contact Wadsworth for the ATS paperwork for Town of Watertown and haven't heard anything back from them. It's been a couple of weeks, so I don't know if there's anything that
Yeah,
we
I'm
can-
in the same boat.
Okay.
South Jeff. I've been waiting about a month.
Okay. I
So
don't
they
know.
said that they're redoing the forms, and that was the best advice they could give us at the state meeting. Again, I can give you what we have. It'll at least give you a starting point, but right now I don't know if they'll accept it. I mean, they said they would not to use them, but
I just wanted to see if anybody else was having that trouble. Thanks.
Did you at least get an acknowledgement of your email requests or your requests? No. Okay. If you think of it, forward me those and I'll forward them through the bureau side just to make sure that
So-
it gets attention on both sides, if you will, the equation.
when I received attention back to my email, I had also copied Dan Clayton on that, if you want to do a follow-up.
Yeah, I'm gonna share it with Dan, but again, the needs there, I get that this isn't in process and all the rest, but at least an acknowledgement that you're on, even if they say, we need another month for the forms, we'll get them out to you then, that's nice to know so you plan your workload, and I'd be happy to follow up on that, just to forward them to my email, and I'll be happy to follow up as best I can for you.
My experience with Wadsworth and many, many communications with them, they will not respond if there's not somebody from the bureau on it. Like you basically have to put John, Mike, and Dan Clayton on it, or they will not acknowledge your existence.
Yeah, let's just, let's just, if there's anything I can do to push them from the EMS program side, I'd like to have the opportunity. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? If not, I need a motion to adjourn, please. Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Cool.